I'm Ron Jenkins. I am a professor of theater at Wesleyan University. And when I was at Bellagio, I worked on writing about the projects that I work on in prison, the theater projects that I work on with incarcerated men and women, where we begin with classic texts like Dante and Shakespeare and elicit responses from the men and women that are inspired by these classic texts. And we create performances out of those responses. And we use those performances as a way of getting the word out of prisons about what goes on inside prisons, and as a way of helping the individuals to create some kind of transformation in their lives. Because prisons are supposed to be places of rehabilitation, but sadly that's not always what happens there. But art is about transformation, and happily many of the people who get involved in the arts in prison find that it is a transformative experience for them. One of the texts that we work with when we go into the prisons is Dante's Divine Comedy. And we chose the play because we chose the poem because the theme of it is transformation. It's about taking a journey from hell to heaven, hell through purgatory to heaven. And the men and women in prison are in the middle of their own journeys. And they're in the middle of the journeys usually from a hellish kind of a place, hoping to get to a place that's better. And although people often have stereotypical opinions about what Dante's Inferno is about, what's interesting about the responses of men and women in prison is that they immediately see that it's not about monsters and hellish things. It's really about hope. That at the core of the story is the hope that Dante has that he's going to pass through all these people who are in pain and suffering, and he's going to find some kind of salvation, some kind of better answer to the way to live his life. And knowing that Dante himself was condemned to death and exiled from his home and never able to go back, the men and women in prison identify with him even more as an individual. And then when they read his story, it elicits all kinds of stories from them about their pasts and their hopes for the future. And we put them into performances that the men and women perform in prison and that also are performed outside of prison, sometimes by my students at Wesleyan and sometimes by the men and women who are released from prison and have a chance to speak their words directly to the public outside. People often ask why I want to take time to go into prison, why I want to make the effort to get inside prison, which is really difficult. Ironically, the hardest thing about this work is to get permission to really go inside the prisons and work. And it's a lot of logistical problems that we have to solve to get into the prison. But we feel that it's worth it because now more than ever, so many millions of dollars are spent on incarceration, and such a large percentage of the population is affected by the prison system and the criminal justice system. People who are in prison, who have relatives in prison, or people who are on parole, it's a huge percentage. It's a higher percentage than any other developed country in the world. And enormous amounts of money are spent on prisons, and the system is not succeeding in creating the kind of rehabilitation or transformation that keeps people from going back to prison. So we're not naive enough to think that theater is going to solve all those problems, but step by step with individuals we can create an alternative way of looking at the future for people who haven't been exposed to the arts and haven't been exposed to the kinds of transformation that the arts open them up to. So and the response, the hunger for art, the hunger for education that we encounter when we're in the prison is addictive. For somebody who's a teacher, I've never had students who are more hungry to learn than the students that I encounter in prisons, and students who are more appreciative even years afterwards about what they got out of working in the arts and how it changed their lives. So once you begin to see the effect that it has on people, you can't stop doing that work. quoting the men to the other residents at Bellagio, quoting the men and women from prison, quoting Dante, the passages in Dante that had meant a lot to them, made me create a play. Actually, we in the prison we had always created plays out of Dante, but at Bellagio, in responding to all the questions from the other residents, I created a play that was actually a response to these questions. But I think the idea for that play and the actualization of that play wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the stimulation and the provocative questions that I was asked by the other residents at Bellagio. So it became a split residency where my academic writing had a chance to flourish, but also the artistic theatrical writing had a chance to flourish as well. And side by side, it created two different products. And astonishingly, because it was only 30 days, I'm surprised that I could finish either one of the projects, but actually managed to finish both.